And I think we're recording. Here we go. How are you? What's going on? How's your week been? Everything good? I'm doing okay. Surviving, managing, trying to thrive, doing my best. But, you know, it's a day of the week. It's been rainy and damp and cold here. I hope wherever you are, it's been comfortable, maybe even warm and sunny. And my thoughts today are entirely, of course, about light. Principally, I just was done talking to my mom on FaceTime, and at what point in our lives do we reach a point where we decide we're going to become mole people? Like my mom lives in a state of like constant low light in rooms, like she's testing her dark vision, and I don't understand how this woman sees anything. Now, I don't know if that's just laziness because she didn't want to turn on a light, or if it's a genuine disinterest in light or something. But I'm deeply amazed as to what point it is that people just sort of stop looking with lights on. It's weird. It must be weird to eat a meal. So, yeah, that's what I'm thinking about right this second. Okay, let's get started. Thanks for your patience. Here we go.
All right. Just remember what I've taught you.
What the fuck is that?
Hey, yo.
All right. Hello. Hi. How are you? How's things going? How's the writing been? You good? Yeah, I'm good. It's cold in here. You've got to bear with me. I know previously I've had lights and windows and everything. It's just damn cold in here. So I'm all bundled up. You'll just have to, remember that it's winter or something. And we're just going to hang out and, do this like this. I hope you're well. I've missed you. It's good to see you. You look great today. Shall we begin? Are we good? I do want to, of course, point out that we are continued to be delightfully sort of sponsored by Sprecher Brewery. Sprecher Brewery, the best damn beverages you could put in your face. Sprecher Brewery, maker of the finest root beer ever, anywhere. You can get yours at SprecherBrewery.com. I have a case over there. It's going to be broken into just after I'm done recording this. I'm super pumped. But that's Sprecher Brewery, proud sponsor of good writing advice and everything else I do. Sprecher Brewery. Check yours out at SprecherBrewery.com. They make their stuff with honey, not corn syrup, so it won't, buzz your children to death. It's really tasty. You should check it out. SprecherBrewery.com. So, I think we should get started. Guys, gals, non-binary pals, friends, writers, makers, doers, dreamers, hopefuls, planners, plotters, pantsers, debaters, arguers, ostriches? People who dwell in the past, people who complain about how the vibe is off, people who complain that you're ruining the vibe, anybody who likes to safety pin socks together when they put them in the wash, anybody who's ever wanted to do more than they're doing but wasn't sure how to do it, anybody who's ever bought a whole stack of books intending to read them and then you find out they just sort of sit there until they collect a good inch of dust, anybody who's ever tried to organize and clean a room and you can't remember half the things or when you bought them, and most importantly, the comrades. This is the Writer's Chat for October I'm going to get this wrong because I got it wrong earlier today, October the 5th. I've been saying it's the 6th all day. So it's October the 5th. This is the Writer's Chat. If this is the first time you're hearing this, hi, I'm John. I'm here to help you write better. It literally says that right there. Basically, I'm a writing coach with over 25 years of experience, and I'm about to dump my brain into your ears so that you can get answers to some questions. And I have to warn you, hang on, I have to warn you that this week, the questions, a little spicy. Not all of them, but some of them, and some of them to a distinct degree. So it's very possible that this hoodie's coming off and ranting will commence, but you'll know when it's coming. I promise. All right? Do we have any other notes? Do we have any other sponsors? Let me just check. No, we're good. I think it's time to march on to question number 1. Here we go. Nope, that's Sprecher Brewery, John. That's the button we needed to press. Question number... Oh, okay, hang on. Nope, we're already here. We're already at the spicy question. Hang on. The hoodie's coming off. How do you plan the stuff between the inciting incident and the midpoint of the story? Okay, come here, right here, in close, with me, right here. You got me? You just asked me how to write your book. Do you understand that? This question is explicitly talking about your second act. If you don't know what goes in the second act of your book, I'm not sure where to begin helping you, because it's the second act of your book. You should, one presumes, know what your story is. And you must know something because you gave me terms. Inciting incident, you know what that is, right? Midpoint of the story, you know what that is? So where's the disconnect? How do you plan the stuff between the incite? That's the second act. How do you plan the second act? Okay, what event starts? And then what happens? And then because of that, what happens next? And then what happens? And then what happens? And then what happens? And then what happens? Just keep doing that until you write your second act. It's just the second act. This is not rocket science. This is not like guess the magic code phrase on the game show. This is just telling your story. And if you don't know how to lay out your own ideas in your own story, I'm not sure what it is you'd like me to do. Because eventually it's going to come down to you making some decisions as to what goes in the story. So figure out your damn story. Figure it out however you want. Do whatever you want in whatever order. But it's your second act. It's where the bulk of the story lives. You could make an argument that it's the entirety of the story, because after that comes the climax and the resolution where you deal with the things you set up in the second act. But you already know that because you gave me terms like inciting incident and midpoint. And I know you're not just somebody out there who's handing me jargon with no idea or understanding of what it is because you're just trying to sound like you know what you're talking about. I know you're not trying to do that. But you're asking me how to plan your second act. Where does the second act start? With the end of the first act. Where does the first act end? With the introduction of the plot. So it stands to reason then that your second act is your plot. One thing after the next, after the next, after the next, after the next, building and building and building and building and building until there's only one inevitable conclusion, which would be the climax of the story. Build and build and build and build. It doesn't matter specifically what you're making. It just matters that those are the steps. That's what this is. That's all there is. How do you plan it? You write it down. You type it. You handwrite it. You write yourself a note. You make a bullet point list. I don't know. But it's your second act. This is the thing. This is what you need to do in storytelling. So go do that thing. Just do that thing, please. Okay? We got spicy already. I swear I didn't expect that one to be spicy. I promise. Question number 2. Can you talk more about building a bridge to your ideal reader? This is something I'm doing over on the podcast feed. So if wherever you get your podcasts, wherever, Spotify, Google, Apple, other podcasty sounding things, if you go search for John Helps You Write Better, where is it? It's the name. It's right up there. You'll find it. And I'm doing 30 pieces of content in 30 days. And building a bridge to your ideal reader is something that's come up in the last couple days. what it refers to is your relationship with the person who's going to buy your product. Your ideal reader is the person who you are essentially writing to, meaning they're the person who likes your book. They're interested in it. They're interested in how you develop and paint a picture in their brain. And you're building a bridge to them by showing them part of their life and part of their experience reflected to them in a way they can agree with. So your worldview matches and meshes with, to some degree, their worldview so that they can say something to the effect of, oh, this person gets me. The more successfully and more frequently and more varied you can make these relationships and these moments of, oh, this person gets me, or this person gets me-ness, I guess, if that makes sense. The more you can do that, and in the greater number of ways you can do that, the better the bridge between you and your reader. The reader really feels like you're speaking to them directly on more than a level of just, oh, here's a knight and they're on a quest. You want to speak to them in a way that reflects some part of their experience back. Now, you can take that to mean whatever you want. And if you're about to jump into the comments or something and bring up some kind of liberal agenda, I'm going to save you right there, because you got to go farther left than that for me. Okay? Don't even bother. You're further left, please. Like, keep going. Keep going. So it's not that kind of agenda. It's more the agenda of, you need to be compassionate and you need to relate to another person. And in doing that, and in projecting and understanding what you think another person is going through based on an amalgamation of how you feel about things, as well as the world you see and you can speak to and put words to, because that's what we do as artists, you can build a bridge to your ideal reader. For more details on that, by the way, go jump on the podcast feed and you'll get inundated in, I think, 6 to 11 minute things every morning for the last couple days, all about your ideal reader and where to find them and who they are and what to do about it. But you build a bridge by finding your relationship to them, finding out how they are and who they are and how they live, and then speaking to those points. And apparently tonight's a night my camera's going to be all finicky. So I apologize for those watching if the camera gets all jittery and wonky. Who knows why? But that's how you build a bridge to your ideal reader. Great question. On we go. Oh, God, I'm so glad I took the hoodie off, because this one gets spicy, too. Question number 3. Why do I waste so much energy on criticism from people who aren't my intended audience? Okay, look, here we go. I'm going to move in, all right, just so you can see me. Cool. There are 2 options here, 2 things to talk about, 2 things you need to keep in mind, okay? 1. It is very likely that you are seeing this as a lost sale. That if I don't get this person on the hook, if I don't get this person turned to my side, if I don't win them over, or some language like that, then they're not going to buy my book, and that's one lost sale. And then you extrapolate and doom spiral from there. Oh my God, nobody's going to buy my book. What am I supposed to do? That's a thing, because capitalism has taught us that more sales is better, and that more sales is the benchmark of a good product or a good quality of product. So you're looking at any lost sale as any kind of indicator that, oh, it's bad to do that. So whatever they give you, criticism-wise, feedback-wise, other bullshit that's really criticism, but they're disguising it as like, I'm being helpful, or I'm just asking questions, or whatever other kind of fuckery they're up to. Whatever they're doing, you're thinking that you have to listen to this, because listening to it, they're somehow going to bring up a valid point, and that's going to allow you to change what you're doing to better engage them with a sale. That's option number 1. Also, I just want to point out, they're probably not going to give you anything actionable, because the people who would give you legitimate feedback to be legitimately actionable, they're not going to do it in any way that sounds critical. They're going to try and come at this in a more helpful, compassionate, frankly, more organized way to get across the point they want to get across. But that's, again, only one option. Here's the other. If you're like me and of a certain vintage, you didn't grow up with the idea that you could just be okay with yourself, and that anybody who gave you criticism was right and you're wrong. And that any criticism or discussion of something you're doing is an immediate and urgent fault, because we were taught through a number of boomer strategies and fucking capitalism, that the overall idea is that if you're being critical, you need to correct that, and you're wrong and bad if you are. So whenever you receive criticism, it becomes this thing you need to fix, as though it accurately and directly speaks to you. But here's the thing. These people generally don't know you. They don't know you. They don't know how hard your Thursday was. They don't know how tough it is to get out of bed in the morning. They don't know what it's like to wake up and be you, or go to bed and be you, and what you worry about and what you stress about. Sure, they see whatever you put on social media. Sure, they can gather it's roughly in the ballpark of their experience because you're a human and they're a human. Sure. But they don't know you. So their criticism should not get any undue weight. It's sort of like if you got yelled at by a lady at the grocery store who was just yelling to yell because, oh my God, you took the last loaf of bread off the shelf, and she would have to go to a different shelf and get different bread, and how dare you? Like, you're not going to let that rock your day, right? You don't know her. She doesn't know you. She's responding to an immediate thing you've done. But you spend so much time spooling about this because you're either thinking it's a lost sale and, oh my God, I'm failing as a business or an entity or something, or it's an attack on me personally because I'm failing. And I got to tell you, just like the lady at the grocery store who's mad that we yoinked the bread before she did, you're not wrong. You're not bad. You're stuck doing this because you failed to get enough support. You're stuck doing this because this is how you learn to interact with others, from a position of weakness, from a position of being criticized, from an assumed posture of being less than. I do it too. I do it all the time. You can literally watch me go through existential crises on camera with a microphone. Like, this is just how we were raised. So the alternative of being like, whatever, your criticism can go suck rocks. It seems easy to say when it's not you being criticized, but in that moment, it can be hugely difficult, if not nigh impossible, to navigate. But you're spending all this energy on criticism from people who aren't your audience because you want people to like you. Because the idea of people not liking you based on how we were raised seems like it's a terrible travesty. But I have to tell you this. Not everybody's going to like you. Not everybody needs to be your friend. That doesn't mean they're going to be like blood oath sworn enemies. It's not going to go from one extreme to the other. But it's okay if they don't like you. And it's okay if you don't act on every piece of criticism. It's okay if you don't immediately jump and make everybody's changes. You're not going to make everyone happy, and that's not because you're a bad person. It's not at all because you're a bad person. It has nothing to do with your personhood. Some people are just going to be impossible to please. So don't sweat that. Just do your best to make some number of people happy, including and first and foremost yourself. And you're going to do okay. But this is a habit, this energy you expend on other people, and you're in charge of it. So slowly over time with practice, make an effort to steer yourself away from the criticism that's just not helping you, and steer yourself towards those things in people that enrich you, that do make a difference. Great question. Not as spicy as I thought. I was prepared like mentally for a rant there. I guess I got my good rant out of the way with that first question. Are there any questions from anybody in chat? Hello, chat. Hi, I see all of you. It's really nice to see you. Thanks for being here. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for hanging out and still being here. It really does mean the world to me. So, are there any questions? Somebody mentioned going home. I can't believe you're going home right this second while I'm here, but I hope you get home safely. Any questions from anybody in chat? Anybody? No? All right, that's fair. Maybe next go around. Here we go. On to more. Question number 4. Is an MFA, that's a Master in Fine Arts, useful anymore? No. Just no. It's nice. Like, I have one. It's great. They're lovely. It's on the wall. You can stare at it. It's nice. It makes some boomer happy. But is it useful? See, what it used to do, what this used to mean was that you were somebody. You were an academic, you were an elite, you were a member of an echelon of writers who were better networked, better connected, and who had some kind of inside fast track in some kind of traditional publishing. This is because you attended a seminar or you were an in-resident writer or something, and it's basically a permission slip to live in the ivory tower. You don't actually have to have a lot of real-world experience because you have all this sort of flawless, perfect book, it should work this way knowledge, but it really doesn't. That utility turns an MFA into a teaching tool. Oh, I have an MFA, therefore it is assumed you know more than everybody else because you went to school for it. Or, oh, I have an MFA, I know how to write papers, take tests, and show up on time. I have discipline. Ooh. But is it specifically and patentedly useful for crafting fiction, for crafting genre fiction? Because the majority of MFA programs still love to shit all over genre fiction. You know that, right? You get that? Like, they'll still look down at you if you're writing stories about space wizards. That's just not their thing. Their pinkies are permanently fused in the upright position from carrying all the tea, and their elbows are buttery soft with all the elbow patches on all their tweed coats. Like, these are the nerds that should get shoved in every locker. I am one. I can vouch for that. The amount of people with their heads lodged so firmly, interanally and interrectally is significant and staggering. But beyond that, there's no real use to an MFA unless you like getting into massive debt, unless you like talking about writing, but not really talking about writing, because the emphasis isn't so much on like how you're going to write your book. The emphasis is more on like the ideals, the platonic ideals of what a book written should be, and the great American novel, and how you have to take your head and like get it way, 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 way up in there, so that, like way up in there, so that you can speak to the meal you ate yesterday. Way, way the hell up there, because that's the best way to be an effective writer, is to just sort of live in this bubble that does not get touched or affected by the real world. So just way up there, so far up there you don't see daylight. It's all sensation at that point. It's not useful anymore. Please don't. Please don't. The economy, the world, fucking capitalism has changed everything, and there's no distinction. Your writing's not going to suddenly magically get better. Your writing will get better by talking to a writing coach, by attending workshops, by actually sitting down and writing. Those are the keys that are going to make your writing better. An MFA is a nice thing to tack on and go, oh, I too have been to school, sir. And you can demand satisfaction at dawn upon the North Hill. But it's not going to help you figure out how to unfuck your climax. Like, that's just not what it does. The MFA doesn't teach you how to write. The MFA teaches you how to be an academic. So if that's what you want to do, and you want to get into professorship and all that, by all means, go nuts, go to town. It'd be great for you. But if you're looking to build your skill as a writer and pay your bills with the skills as a writer, that ain't the way to go. Save yourself the money and time. Good question, though. Question number 5. Sort of related to what we just talked about. What would it take for me to write fiction full-time and be comfortable financially? Oof. What does that 5-year plan look like? All right, first of all, 5 years, we're gonna have a bit of a chat about this 5-year plan, because it's more likely going to be a 7-year plan. But that's okay. We can do it in 5. You're just going to have to like really, really, really work hard at this. So understand that for a 5-year plan, about 3 of those 5 years, you're not doing anything else other than really writing. But it's not that simple, because here's the reality of things. As a writer, the thing that pays the most bills easily is one of the least frequently produced things you do. You only write a book once, and it takes a long-ass time. Days, weeks, months, years even. So that's one part of the process, and that's where the big cash cow is. But in the interim, you're going to have other bills. So we're going to talk about 2 different things that you need to be doing in order to accomplish this in some amount of time. 5 years feels a little hasty and a little at least when it comes to giving advice. And if you're wondering what that is in audio, it's just real, like, oh no, I don't want to mess it up. It's real tense. I'm more comfortable in a 7-year window, but 7 years feels like a super big commitment for a lot of people. So don't let that freak you out. Just think about this in terms of, here is a multi-year plan. But first, we need to make a distinction between the writing itself and other streams of income, because you've got to be able to be comfortable financially. That was the question. So I'm assuming you don't want to live like me on maybe about a $65 food budget, where you're stretching things out, drinking a lot of water, doing a lot of push-ups, and going hungry a lot of the time. I'm assuming you want to be slightly more comfortable than that. So how do you do it? One, we've got to identify the writing. How long does it take you to write, assuming from a blank page day one, to produce a number of drafts, get it revised, get it finalized, get it edited, get a cover, and get it out the door? You've got to figure out how long that takes you. Is it weeks? Is it months? I'm assuming it's at least weeks, because it should be at least weeks. The goal for this question isn't to answer as quickly as possible. The goal is just to have a ballpark amount of time. If you know that I'm going to make numbers up, you can get the whole thing done from blank page to finished book in 6 months, because you have people lined up, because you have a process, because you know what to do. Then in 6 months, every 6 months, that means you can produce 2 books a year. See how I get there? 6 months for one, 6 months for the other, 12 months in a year. All right? But that means you are spending some amount of time every day. There are no days off. Every day working on either book 1 or book 2 each year. And that assumes there are no wrinkles and hiccups. You don't take a day off. You don't take a little bit too long to do a thing. And everything runs as smoothly as possible, as frequently as possible. This is a little bit idealized. It's possible. You can pull this off, but it requires extraordinary discipline and extraordinary organization. Now, maybe you have that, and that's great. I hope you do. But if you don't, you don't. That's fine too. But let's assume it's 6 months from blank page to finished book. Figure it's a month to write, a month to revise, a month to get feedback, a month for a cover, a month for marketing. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's what, 6? Yeah, 5 or 6. You could do that. It is reasonable, but that requires many high functioning writing days back to back to back. And you've got to understand that this is a summonable thing. Sit down, hands on keys, go. Not like, 20 words. No, this is the job. This is the level of work you need to be performing at if you're going to do this. Now, if you're doing 1 book a year, that's fine. It doesn't automatically give you like, I get 4 weeks off. It doesn't automatically turn into like PTO or something, but it does at least give you a chance to produce a book a year. And anything less than a book a year, and this plan does not work. You understand that, right? You have to know that you've got to be making at least 1 whole ass book a year. And if you're out there listening to this and go, oh my God, a book a year, I don't know what to tell you. This is the job. This isn't just, I write when I feel like it and hope somehow it's enough for me to pay the mortgage later. This is the job. I'm going to pay my rent. I'm going to pay my bills based on selling my books. This is the job. If that makes you uncomfortable, I don't know what to tell you. I can strongly recommend selling soap or perfumes or hats or heroin or, I don't know, go sweep up apartment building hallways or something. I don't know. Find something else to do. But that's the bulk of your time dedicated to one singular task of producing a book. But in the interim, you've got to find something else you can do pretty regularly to bring in some kind of income somewhat consistently for those days and weeks and months when you're not getting paid because the book isn't done yet. So you're going to need some kind of alternate stream or streams, ideally more than one stream of income coming in. Maybe that's Twitch streaming. Maybe that's a Patreon. Maybe that's a 4-pay newsletter like Substack. Maybe that's, small little gigs in the gig economy. Maybe that's, proofreading. Maybe that's a day job. That's variable or a part-time job, a night job. I don't know, but it's something. There's something there where you can make this work because the book's going to pay infrequently and rarely, but it will pay, one presumes, more than other streams would, at least if you go traditional. In self-publishing, things get a little dicier. Things sort of all homogenize to roughly the same set of price points. So then it becomes more urgent and more critical to be an effective marketer. So let's recap what we have so far. You're doing at least 1 or 2 books a year. You are always in book production, and concurrent to that, you are doing things around the edges, the perimeter of your writing career to help bring in more income and stabilize it. Now, this is not going to be glamorous. This is not going to be fun. This is not going to be real easy. You're going to have to eat some shit, as they say in the business, and it's difficult, but not completely out of the realm of possibility to nail this in 5 years. It's tight. It's real tight. 7 years, 10 years is a bit more doable. It gives you that cushion and that wiggle room, because the other factor here that we didn't really bring up is all the stuff out of your control. Like, what happens if the housing market crashes again? What happens if the world economy crashes again? What if with this, the change in gas prices that's about to happen, what if that makes it impossible to commute to your day job? What if it makes it prohibitive to get from point A to point B? What if the cost of food keeps rising? What if, XYZ? What if fucking Martians show back up? I don't know. There's loads of things out of your control that mean you can't easily guarantee a 5-year plan. And anybody who's telling you that they can get you out of one job into another in exactly 5 years is probably selling you a course or a PDF on exactly how to do that. So be aware. The comfortable part is the part that threw me, by the way, because you can go full time at any point and just weather the storms and rough uncertainties. But it's that comfortable idea, because that's going to be pretty subjective. What are you comfortable with versus what somebody else is comfortable with? Getting there means building up a consistent thread of income independent of the books, but also being able to consistently produce book material so that you can bring both in. You're going to be busy. And I would strongly recommend in advance of the 5-year plan, you really make an effort to learn how to take care of yourself. You learn how to soothe. You learn how to self-care. You learn how to harden yourself against some rejections. You learn how to summon the discipline to focus when possible. It's not easy. I believe in you. I absolutely believe anybody can do this. I know you can do this, but it's going to be work. I hope I've answered your question. If I haven't, because this is normally a coaching question. This is normally something where I like lay out a whole thing in an hour. So I've condensed it down to, 10 minutes in a chat. I hope this helps. If not, holler, and I'll re-explain more of it in a longer form somewhere. But it's a great question. Thanks for asking it. Comfortable for me doesn't mean Stephen King levels of money. Just don't have to pay the bills and not worry about keeping the lights on. It's helped a lot. Yeah, that's a good point. It's good to know that where you're good with comfortable. Just understand that sometimes it's going to be a bit of a stretch to get to. You'll get to comfortable, but some days sometimes it's going to be a nail biter getting there. But you can get there. You can get there. All right. Question 6. Gentle advice. Question 6. Where should I begin to organize a second draft out of a messy first draft? With a big heaving sigh. Okay, here's where you're going to start. Take your first draft. Are there any scenes that are absolutely fundamental for your plot? Not if they're any good. We're not worried about goodness yet. We're just worried about building the skeleton of the story. All your plot-centric, plot-critical scenes, pull them out, paste them into a file. We're going to call this file second draft. What's your opening like? Paste that in there. Make sure you can identify your climax. So now you've got your intro, your loose plot critical scenes, a climax, and about the last 2 to 3 pages. Okay? Now, that's going to leave you some Swiss cheese. That was by design. So now, instead of constantly going over with a fine-tooth comb a shitty first draft, look at the pieces we've salvaged and how can you better stitch them together now going forward. You're going to build the second draft out of the rubble of the first, and then from here, always build new architecture. Don't dip back into the first draft so frequently. The first draft was great. It got the idea out of your head, but now it's time to really use your tools. So we've identified our intro. We've identified our plot critical stuff. We found our climax. We found our resolution. Great. We have enough to build the loose frame of the story. Now all I got to do is fill it in. What am I going to fill it in with? Okay, you're going to fill it in with, you're going to make sure you've got a character arc. You're going to make sure you've got, if possible, a subplot. You're going to make sure you've got at least one theme. You've done some world building. You've done all the things we talk about when we talk about story building. You're not going to ask me a question like the first question where it's, well, how do I plan between the inciting incident and the midpoint? That's the second act. You're going to do that in here. Like, you're going to write one section at a time, one thing at a time until you get done and get through all the pieces. Then you're going to build a third draft. But from the from the first draft, just take the critical stuff and then stitch new things in together and smooth it out from there. Don't worry. How do I say this? Don't worry about trying to salvage the majority of the first draft. It is very okay if you leave a lot of that behind going forward. Mostly the function of a first draft is to A, finish the whole idea, B, get it out of your head, C, in pretty much this order, use it as some kind of starting point, not so much to massage the text constantly, but at least a starting point to know what you could create from. It's the launch pad as opposed to the rough timbers of the building. If I can mix my rocket and architecture metaphors any further. But your second draft is mostly going to be shaped after you figure out what to keep from the first draft. And then you're just forever writing to fill in the blanks. Great question. Love it. Thanks for asking. Are there any further questions from anybody, anywhere, in chat? Also, hello, YouTube from the future. I hope you're doing well. I didn't say hi to you the other day, YouTube. I'm really sorry. Hi, YouTube. Please don't feel left out. I still love you somewhat. Questions from chat? Yes? No? Else we will march on. Questions? Hang on. There is a question. When creating tension before an action scene, are there any definite ways to increase it? Like increase the tension? Yes. So here are the things that increase tension here. I'm going to put, hang on. We're going to back up a scene. I'm going to put this question up. Okay. When creating tension before an action scene, are there any definite ways to increase it? Yep. Here you go. The number one thing that increases tension is the potential for risk or harm or danger. The idea that if X, whatever X is, goes wrong, the consequences are very severe, making the reader aware of the potential ballpark neighborhood of those consequences is going to increase tension. Pointing out the disparity in power dynamic. That guy's real big and I'm just me and I'm tiny. Anytime you can point out an us versus them or a they're bigger than me and I'm at a disadvantage, or the narrating character or the protagonist is at the disadvantage, anytime you can show that power dynamic shift, you're going to increase tension because the question to the reader becomes, how are they going to get through this? Other thing to do, increase not so much the number of, like, there's 25 people here, and if you increase it to 30 people, it doesn't suddenly get more intense. It's the proximity of their action. How quickly will these 25 people jump me? That's going to create more tension than the fact that there are now 30 guys to jump me. Because ultimately, at some point, there's not enough physical space for 25 people to swarm you. Even in the most Agent Smith-Neo fight in the Matrix, eventually some people have to end up waiting their turn. But when you're creating that tension, you can only increase it so far prior to the start of the action. Like, you don't always want to like ramp it up and then sustain it and then pay it off. You don't always want to do that because that gets frustrating to read. Sometimes you don't need to draw it out. You just want to introduce it and then move forward and let the action scene be the thing that mitigates or manages or reduces that tension. You don't always have to get it up as high and as close as it'll go before you do something about it. Use this sparingly. But your answer is mostly going to be in your power dynamic and in the threat against the character, whomever they might be. But you don't always have to do that like every time. Okay? Great question. Back to the other. Great question. Love that question. Question 7. Is there any value to book talk? If you don't know what book talk is the section of TikTok where writers and what are they calling themselves now? Media critics and random people both in and around publishing talk about books. They recommend books. They put their little internet weight and their membership behind a book. They talk shit on books. They advertise them. They talk about vaguely writing them. They talk poorly about what it requires to be a writer. And they feed some of the same garbagey lies and half-truths that traditional publishing has forwarded forever, that one method of publishing is better than the other, that you need representation from a pimp, that, you know, the money's going to be great in Shangri-La, and, you know, they'll just keep feeding more of the status quo because they're directly profiting from the status quo. Because if you're on Book Talk, chances are you're not spending enough time writing because TikTok's designed to keep you scrolling on TikTok. So you keep getting and accruing all these, oh, I should read that book. Oh, I should listen to this person. Oh, there's this. Oh, there's that. And the value to Book Talk is lost. There's a real pressure for people to like jump on board and be part of it because it's where a very active kind of writer fan base. I'm using fan base loosely. Fan base. The issue here is that if you're really into a lot of very angry white ladies complaining about books and complaining about your book, and you're really desperate to try and impress the Karens of the world, Book Talk's great for you. You'll love Book Talk. It's totally your jam. If, however, you are not interested in the impressions of some people who sort of speak in little echo chambers and promote the same bullshit that you could get anywhere else on social media, then maybe Book Talk is not so valuable for you. However, it is currently very popular, and you're about to watch over the next like 2 to 3 months, maybe you're going to watch a lot of traditional publishers, especially after this most recent court trial, suddenly slide over into the Book Talk space, trying to both co-opt it as well as expand it and butter up these people who have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of viewers, but who ultimately don't do anything other than do whatever they need to do to sustain their viewership. But for you, the author, you want to find value to Book Talk, watch Book Talk, do what I do. Watch Book Talk while you're, waiting for the laundry, or just, put it on while you're scooping cat shit, because they got about the same intrinsic value. So is there any value to Book Talk? No. And if you're on Book Talk and you want to come talk to me, come here, right here. I'll be happy to speak to you about how little good you're actually doing for writers. Okay? Cool. Great question. Love it so much. Now, somebody asked, is this another hashtag writing community? It might be worse. It might be worse. Because TikTok has this very funny ability to make everybody feel like they're both like Federico Fellini, but also Hitchcock, but also like the star of their own like supernova of fame. You're just on the fucking social media talking about books you liked. Like, let's not get this too terribly twisted. You might be a coach, you might be an editor, you might even be good at those things. But 60 seconds to 3 minutes is generally not enough time to change the universe, but it's plenty of time for you to gather a following of people who tell you how great you are. There's your value, Book Talk. Enjoy. Question 8. John, what did you learn from your conference last week? Now, for those who don't know, the end of last week, Thursday and Friday of last week, I attended a conference all about podcasting. Why? Because I have a podcast, and for a very long time, I've sucked at it. I've just generally sucked. I've got all this equipment. I don't really use it to its fullest potential. There's loads of things I do not really to their fullest potential, and well, I need to stop doing things by half measures, because when you do things by half measures, the only thing that you do in full measure is lose money and time. And I'm tired of losing both those things. So it was more time for me to get serious about stuff, which means I'm going to this conference. This conference that was focused predominantly on streaming, on podcasting, on organizing your ideas and getting your things across. And I have a whole, where is it? Hang on. I got a whole brand new, like, little notepad here. Well, that page is blank, but I got a whole chunk of pages here. All notes. I took days and days of notes, hours and hours, 12 hours a day of different classes, all about, hey, you should do this thing, and here's how, and here's some software, and here's some ways to use it, and here's what you can accomplish with it, and it's super good, and you should totally do it. Mostly, I learned a few things. One, the camera's going all wonky again. Why is the camera going wonky again? I'm so sorry. If it keeps doing that again, yeah, all right, you know what we're going to do? We're going to turn you off. Okay, we'll just do that. Here's what I learned from this conference. One, the vast majority of people, the reason why your podcast doesn't take off, the reason why you can't seem to get anything really going is because you don't actually do it. You don't actually sit down and do it in a way where when it gets hard, you stick with it. That's a major issue. It's got to be, no more half measures, no more daydreams. If you're going to do a thing, do a thing. There's a lot of parallels there for writers. It's one thing to talk about it, one thing to talk about how great it's going to be. It's another thing to actually roll up your sleeves and do it. And a lot of this conference was spent on rolling up your sleeves and really doing it. So good there on that. Other thing I learned, there's actually a lot of software and a lot of different services to make your life easier. For whatever reason, unaware as I was about software and things, I was doing things like the long way. Getting captions, running this thing in tandem with that thing, over here with this, that, and the other, taking a transcript, waiting for YouTube. I was doing everything more complicated than it needed to be because I thought it had to be that way. But there are always tools you can look for and tools you can use and resources to avail yourself of to make your job easier. For me, that turns into a few different things. For podcasting, it meant switching to a host. I'm no longer hosted by Spreaker. I'm hosted now over on Captivate FM, and immediately my audience has grown. Like, it's just easier to access my stuff. It's easier to find my stuff. I'm generally doing better at it. I'm using a program called Descript. They were very nice enough to extend me a great deal of budget courtesy and time in order to get me where I need to be and what I'm doing. So super helpful there, but it's a program that allows me to better deal with audio, better create things and smooth out the process so that I'm not running like 6 different programs at once every time I want to talk to you guys. But again, I didn't know any of these things existed, and I immediately assumed wrongfully that, oh my God, this stuff must be like super crazy expensive in order to do. And is it expensive? Does it cost some money? Yeah, but we're talking like $5 here, $10 here, $15 maybe over there. And with enough production, you can offset that. One of the hard parts for me, and one of the last things this conference taught me, was that it isn't just about expending the money. It isn't just about producing this stuff and going, oh my God, it keeps eating into my budget. Because the things I do with this, whether it's videos like this, whether it's podcasts, whether it's blog posts, those things do generate an income for me. And this software that I'm using and these programs and all this stuff help make that better, help make it more possible. So it doesn't directly exactly pay for itself right away, But if I'm able to do a better job faster, then it's easier to do it. And if it's easier to do it, it's easier for me to succeed at it because I'll do it easier with less hassle. So maybe I'll do more of it, which is what I'm doing in podcasting, and then I'll see more of an immediate return. So it does help, but the lessons, you got to actually sit down and do it. Nobody's going to do it for you. Avail yourself of technology and resources where possible, and don't immediately act on assumption. Educate yourself. Learn how things really are and then give it a try. That's what I learned from my conference. Great question. Let's see if the camera's ready to behave. Nope, it's not. All right. Question 9. Is follow for follow a good strategy for writers? So if you don't know what follow for follow is, it's the idea, and maybe you've seen this on Twitter, let's say. Hey, I'm looking for writers to follow. If you follow me, I'll follow you back. Or, hey, we should totally I'll sub to your channel, you'll sub to mine. Okay. Now, is this a great strategy for writers? Kinda. If our goal is to meet more writers, then yeah, this is a great way to do it. Follows, at least in most platforms, don't cost anything. It's a button click. There's no extra expense to it. And it doesn't really matter how much that costs. Hey, I can follow more people. I can get exposed to more people. That's great. However, here's where the downside comes in. What good is it doing your book? So you've got this book. Doesn't matter what your book is, but you've got this book, right? What does it matter? How does following, Jane, the writer from Manitoba, how does following her and listening to her promo her book or her answer vapid questions from the hashtag writing community, how does that help you sell your book? I mean, maybe you can make a case that by watching Jane, you're learning what not to do, assuming Jane is bad at this. But what exactly is the point of, I want to follow writers? Why? What are you getting from it? Are they going to buy your book? I mean, if they are, that's great. Congratulations, you found more customers. Good for you. But does that really turn into everybody you follow sells? Because if that were the case, I got about 2,700 followers on Twitter. Man, if every one of them gave me $1, I'd be set for 3 months. That's not how that works. And I shouldn't expect that and plan for that or live like that, but it doesn't mean automatically that 2,700 people or whatever are going to be buying a thing I produce. I'd love that. That'd be great. I would love that to happen. But it's unrealistic for me to assume that the minute I say, hey, I'm doing a thing, this room suddenly fills with 2,700 people. I'd probably have a panic attack. In fact, I'm sure I'd have a panic attack if that were the case. I'm lucky I got this, 6 or 7 of you I got in here now. So it's a fine strategy, but ultimately it's toothless. It does not lead directly to sales. It doesn't necessarily make you a better marketer. It means you've got slightly more people who will technically market to, but there's no guarantee that they're going to transition into customers. I follow a lot of writers. They promo a lot of books. I don't buy a lot of them. Why? I don't want to. Their pitches are unappealing. Their products aren't a thing I like to read. I'm following them. It's nice. I hope one day they'll turn around and ask me for help, because that's what I would love to do. I'd love to help them succeed at whatever they're trying. But I don't go out of my way to be like, hey, everybody follow me. I mean, sometimes I do, but it's not my go-to move. So in terms of it being a good strategy, if you just want to pad your numbers, it's great. It's fantastic. You just want to grow that number, make that number go up. Follow for follow is fantastic. In terms of growing your customer base, not so much. Not your best move. You'd be better off working with a newsletter or a mailing list or consistent blogging or consistent podcasting or consistent streaming, something where your audience can directly engage with something you're producing, as opposed to nebulously waiting for one day something will happen and the planets will align. But it's not a bad point if you just want to raise your numbers. So it's a tolerable strategy. Next question. Are there any further questions from chat? I want to back up half a second while I'm waiting for questions to talk follow for follow. Just one more thing. It's not bad if you've done it. Like, it's not the end of the world if you've done it, right? It's okay. But don't think that's going to be the solution that will lead you from no one knows who I am to, oh my God, hundreds of people are buying my book. Because it's not. We have not talked about the tea. The tea this evening is interesting. It's passion fruit. Well, technically it's passion fruit and vanilla. Two things I didn't think would go together. It's not bad. It would probably be better warm, but I put it over ice because I had ice. But it's pretty good. It's got some cold. It's got noticeable vanilla, which is nice. But it's pretty. It'd be good warm. It'd be damn good warm. Asked this before, but any self-care tips for writers? We have talked self-care before, but I'm not going to make you dig through the writer's chat to find it. I will give you some self-care tips. One, from a physical standpoint, rest your hands. Whether that means you soak them, whether that means you keep them warm, whether that means you stretch them, wiggle your fingers, move the fingers in the knuckle joint, all the stuff like that. Take care of your hands because presumably, you're using your hands for part of your job. This also includes lotions and hydration. Like, don't let your skin get too dry. Don't let your skin crack and bleed. It'll hurt. So take good care of your hands, and they'll help you take good care of your career. Next thing, make sure you're drinking enough fluids, preferably water. Tea is a diuretic. I'm down for that. I know I need that, but that's a me thing. You don't have to get in on that. But water, hydrate, fill your body with fluid. It helps in so many ways. Next thing, your guts, your GI tract, whatever you want to call it, really be kind to your microbiome. So periodically throw some like acidophilus down there, get some greens up in you, have a yogurt or 3, really try and help your body be a more effective engine, because that's going to help you creatively. It's going to help your stamina. It's going to help you feel physically better. It's going to generally make it possible for you to be a more effective creative. I do believe there is a strong correlation between your gut health and your mental clarity, because if you take good care of yourself, your brain works a little smoother because it doesn't have to work so hard. So in the physical realm of things, how you go about doing that's pretty variable and flexible. I am not a dietitian. You don't want to deal with my diet. It's super restrictive for most people, but that's because it keeps me alive. But by and large, from a physical standpoint, take care of your body. The next thing you can do, independent of writing, is exercise. Some way, shape, or form. Move a little. If you move your body, you change your mind. You move your body, you get liberated from the position, you get blood circulating, you get oxygen going. It helps. It can help you think. It can help you deal with frustration. It can help you deal with mood. It can give you some energy. It can help your heart beat. It can reduce leg swelling, because if we're all sitting here so goddamn long, eventually our feet will swell. And if you're not drinking enough water, then you're definitely going to get some swollen feet. Exercise makes a huge difference. It's also a fantastic mood stabilizer. So if you're somebody like me where the sun disappears for 6 months out of the year and you want to like never turn on a camera and just speak into the darkness with a microphone, yeah, exercise totally makes all the difference. Beyond that, strong scheduling. Schedule the hell out of things and really stick to it, including scheduling yourself time not to work. And I know we talked before when we were trying to come up with a 5-year plan that we'd be working all the damn time. And it's certainly going to feel like that. But there have to also be times where you are consistently taking care of yourself. Get a good amount of sleep on the regular. Get up at roughly the same time. Go to bed at roughly the same time. Cut out caffeine 2 hours before you plan on going to bed. Don't stick a screen in your face an hour before you're going to bed. Wind your body down. Take good care of it. Exercise, stretch, think, relax. Be willing to take a morning off. Poop good. Whatever it is you got to do to take care of yourself, to facilitate the engine in your brain working as best as possible for as long as possible. And you will have a significant leg up with other people when it comes time to sit down and write. I'd start there before we even talk about organizing your workspace or setting the mood or equipping yourself with a success hoodie. That's going to show up in one of the 30 for 30 podcast things. But it's worth developing let's call it a bodily routine before we can really establish a creative one. Great question. Love that question. Also, stretch as best you can when you can. Your arms, your back, a lot of your back, hips, legs, whatever you can. But definitely your back and definitely your shoulders, because our postures suck for the most part. And strengthening those back muscles make it a hell of a lot easier to sit in a chair. And if you're eating well and taking care of yourself, then sitting in that chair becomes a lot more feasible for creating stuff. Great question. Any others? Will I put more delicious tea in my face? It is really good. That is really good. I should get them to sponsor. God damn it. Why don't I ever think of these things at the time? We should get tea to sponsor me. Shit. Fucking genius, you guys. Love my community. Good job, guys. We're going for tea next as a sponsor. Other questions, though? All right. On we go. Oh, I would love to do Twinings. That would be fantastic. I like Twinings. It's been a long time since I had Twinings. I think it's Twinings. They make this adaptogens ginger tea. Sprecher is amazing. Shout out to Sprecher. Sprecher Brewery. Established in Milwaukee in 1985. Your home for the best root beer on the planet. SprecherBrewery.com. See, I do that like it's going to be all smooth, but then to get back to the scene I was at, I got to go like 5 different clicks. Yeah, Sprecher. Amazing. I've got a root beer in the fridge. It's going to be nice. I'm going to sit down and sip it when I'm done. I'm super pumped. They also, by the way, Sprecher, you guys are awesome. They make a caffeinated root beer now. I'm so excited to give that a try. I'm going to try that one tomorrow. Super pumped for that. All right. And the camera's being wonky. Question number 10. Does genre have an effect on potential sales in self-publishing? And the answer is kinda. So every genre sells. Some genres sell better than other genres, but every genre sells. And some books in some genres sell better than other books, both in that genre as well as in other genres. For example, a romance novel will almost always sell better than a straight Western. They're 2 different arenas with 2 different audiences, with 2 different sets of expectations, 2 different hungers for material, 2 different sales outlooks, all that stuff. If this question is asking, hey, John, what genre should I write in? Then it's the wrong question to ask. I get where you're going. You want to write stuff so that you can make money. Respect, capitalist. I totally understand that. We all have bills to pay. At least until we understand that universal basic income is a fundamental human right, because everybody should have the ability to be fed, clothed, housed, and cared for medically. Until we accept that those are human rights as opposed to social rights. Capitalism's a thing we have to deal with. The tools of our enemies. So I can understand wanting to write in a popular genre because it'll make you some money. I get that. Capitalism and its associate friends are awful. But the expectation is also a double-edged sword, because let's say you say, romance is a big self-pub genre. It is. If you write a clunker of a romance, an absolute dud, a House of the Dragon level bad romance novel, If you don't know what I'm talking about, go over and check out patreon.com/John helps you write better. I've been going through painfully an episode at a time through the Game of Thrones spinoff. Is that what that is? Prequel? Garbage, horseshit, dragon, child sex show, House of the Dragon. It's bad. It's bad every Tuesday. I enjoy recording it because I know it makes people happy to have me walk through why it's so bad, but I can't stand watching it. But if you write something that bad, it will have an effect, but not a positive one. It'll just be a bad book in a crowded genre. It'll get lost in the shuffle. But overall, the best way to approach this is, no matter what your genre is, maximize what you can do to sell best in it, which means understand the expectations and wants of your audience. So if you're writing romance, you don't have to deliver them a happily ever after, although I'm sure plenty of people right now are getting very angry that I just said that. But you don't have to give them a happily ever after. What you need to give them is a well-crafted romance of whatever flavor romance you're writing. If you're writing science fiction, give them good science fiction. Combine your tropes, subvert your tropes, develop your theme, develop your arcs, create an interesting world, synthesize it all together. You're writing fantasy, do better than a high fantasy quest. Don't just scratch and sniff and paint by numbers. Really seek to tell your story, wherever it is, to the best of its ability, so that as a standout in its genre, whether you self-pub or trad-pub, you'll have that significant advantage, and it will be enhanced by how the genre interprets sales or sellability. So I kind of did an end around through your question, and I apologize, but as much as there is a direct link and say this genre sells more than that genre, it's less important to get lost in those numbers and more important to focus on how we can use that to our advantage for creating the art we want to create and putting it in front of people we want to put it in front of. On we go. Question 11. Oh, hang on. Where's my button? Oh, there's my button. If there's a rant question, it's this one. Where am I supposed to find the money to hire? It's supposed to be an editor. Am I supposed to find the money to hire an editor or afford a cover? Come here, right here, into my busted ass camera. Hi. I hear this a lot. And I generally don't say this, but I'm tired of not saying it, so I'm going to say it now. Usually the people who are complaining about how expensive it is are the people who will never need it, because you'll never finish. Because you're not interested in finishing. Because as much as you want to be successful and as much as you want to have this fantasy, you like it better as a fantasy because there's no threat to you. It's no risk to you. You don't have to work hard. There's no risk of rejection or judgment or complaint or poor sales or anything like that. So it can stay this little fantasy that lives in your head. So when you ask and bitch and piss and moan about how much somebody's job costs, and you are happy to not give them that money, you are happy to prevent them from feeding themselves because, oh, where am I supposed to get that much money? It tells me two things. One, you're not really serious about doing this, because the people who put money on a job, who put money on a thing, they're serious about it. And they go, they might say, oh, this is expensive, but they understand what they're paying for and they understand the value in it. And complaining, it's nice, but it's kind of meaningless. It's like yelling at the plumber for being expensive as he fixes your leaky sink. You want the leaky sink or you want it fixed? You want a book or you want a shitty book? Like, what are we talking about here? But your complaints, all they scream isn't so much, oh my God, I'm really cheap, though it does scream that. It also screams, I'm never going to finish. I'm not interested in having this done. I don't like the hard work that comes along with this part of the job. I just want to talk about being a writer and think about it and tell everybody I'm working really hard at it, but I also don't want to be poked. I also don't want to be critiqued. I also don't want to sell. I also don't want to be judged. I don't want to risk rejection. I don't want to risk myself. I'm a coward. I'm a cheap coward, And I'm afraid to tell everybody that. So instead, I'm just going to complain to people who are trying to make a living. That's what you get across when this question comes up. I don't say that a lot, but I'm tired today. So I'm saying this now. Where are you supposed to find the money? Save the money. $2 here, $5 there, 45 cents here. Get a fucking jar. Dump your money into it. Do a little bit, make a little bit, save a little bit. Okay? Now, this is normally where I talk about, oh, well, editors have payment plans. Book people have payment. Yeah, they do. But there's no payment plan that's, free. There's no payment plan that's going to be less than about $100. Now, you can go lowball somebody. You can get out there and exploit some worker on Fiverr or something and have them make you a bullshit cover for less than $100. And you can feel like you've totally pulled a fast one over on people if you're willing to look at yourself unethically like that and go, yeah, but I really made a savings. I got a $65 cover. And maybe that $65 cover is an absolute steal because that cover artist should be charging 10 times as much. And if they are, and you don't turn around and subsidize them properly, you're a shitty person because they worked really hard. But by and large, there's always some way of working this stuff out, whether it's a little bit of trade and a little bit of money, or, I've got 2/3 of the payment, but I need to work out a deal for the last third. You've got to at least make the effort because everybody's got to try and survive. So where are you supposed to find the money? I don't know. How important is this to you? You'll find the money. It might take a while. It might take weeks, months, years. But if it's important to you, you put energy behind it. If it's important to you, you spend time on it. If it's important to you, you spend money on it. What else do you want me to tell you? But complaining about this doesn't make me want to lower my prices. Complaining about this doesn't make me go, gosh, my per hour rate's super high. You're right. No, my per hour rate's that high, and frankly, it's still low. My per hour rate's that high because that's about the bare minimum I can pay. Like, gas costs money, food costs money, houses cost money, cat food costs money. I'm not even talking about like the subscriptions to the streaming services. I'm talking about the ability to feed myself. And if you're going to sit there and tell me I'm charging too much when I know for a fact I'm the cheapest writing coach you could Google. What do you want? Oh, you're right. I'll lower my price for you, a person who's going to complain about everything. No. So where are you supposed to find the money? Save the money, or just tell everybody you're chicken shit and let us move on with our day. And I wish you well with your efforts. How's that sound? Can we do that? I think we should totally do that. There you go. Here, you know what? Have this too. All right. On to the next question. Good God. My blood pressure went up like 10 points in that. I apologize. You know what we're going to do? We're going to take a 2-second break so I can get a mouthful of water. Any questions from chat while I get this mouthful and, de-escalate from the, oh my God, I want to reach through the internet and just like throttle someone? Questions? Issues? Now, someone did point out that work exchanges are a thing. Absolutely. Work exchanges can be fantastic. Hey, can you edit part of my stuff and in exchange, I'll do this for you? Love that. Love that. I'm doing a lot of those right now. Hey, give me some notes and some marketing stuff on this. And in exchange, I'll help you sort out, this other thing that you have difficulty with. Everybody gets met where they need to be met. Everybody can do what they need to be doing. And while it's not necessarily ideal in some cases, because there are some days while I am appreciative of the help, I would also have liked, throw me $10 so I could, buy some eggs or something. But by and large, work exchange is a totally viable method, but it's just about anything is preferable to complaining. There's just no, like, what do you want me to do? I just don't understand. If you happen to know what it is, like, I'm supposed to be doing when you complain about the price, please let me know. Considering the way the world is right now, cyberpunk, pretty dystopian as a genre, is cyberpunk overall as a genre viable? Yeah, absolutely. So, yes, the world is pretty dystopic. We are in the middle of an oligarchic technocracy. Well, arguably, it's a gerontological oligarchic technocracy because it's ruled by old rich people who control us through technology, i.e. phones and sneakers and software and computers and stuff like that. And that can certainly be a disincentive because you might initially, in your cynicism or frustration with the world, think, well, who wants to read a story that too closely mirrors real life? You'd be surprised because it's still a level of escapism. And no one is saying that you have to verbatim recreate the conditions of life in your book. I mean, people still play Shadowrun, and that has orcs and dragons and shit. Like, there's always a need for dystopic literature of some way, shape, or form. There's always a need for that because the part that it's dystopic only attracts a small percentage of the population. The majority of the readers who go for the dystopic genre want to see the story play out set against that dystopia. They want to see the ragtag group of rebels blow up the fascist Death Star. They want to, the young plucky journalist uncovering the truth. They want to follow that story thread. So yes, cyberpunk is totally viable. The issue with cyberpunk, especially as we go forward, be really careful with the ableism. If there's any real point to make about cyberpunk, it's that the earlier stuff, for a number of reasons, but the earlier stuff becomes incredibly ableist very quickly. Cyberpunk is generally considered one of the more friendly genres when it comes to things like sexuality and identity. In fact, it's one of the first genres to really identify gender-neutral characters or character development, but the ableism, the augmentation, the transhuman argument, all that stuff can very quickly slide into heavy ableism and disability erasure hella super quick, faster even than magic can in magical systems. But overall, the genre remains viable. You just have to be willing to narrow down the punk element. Like, what is it? What punk is your punk, and how am I expressing it in my story? But yes, that's a great question. Figure out your punkness, and you'll do okay. Good stuff. Yeah. Thanks for letting me bring my blood pressure down. I greatly appreciate it. What is punk? So, you know what punk rock is? I'm gonna uninstall this camera and reinstall it later, so forgive me. Punk, all right, so punk, whether it's cyberpunk or corn punk or diesel punk or whatever, punk refers to a type of development or story potential. Like, it's punk, like punk rock. Punk rock is music that stands up against rock. It's abrasive and transgressive compared to the social norms of rock. Cyberpunk is a punk attitude standing up against generally a corporate or mega city structure where the punk element is the minority standing up against like the homogenized uniform, like do it against the boomers kind of thing. Diesel punk is that same strategy but applied to sort of a diesel run atmosphere or era. Corn punk, farm punk, art punk. These are all things where the thing punk, X punk refers to X as the medium through which the power dynamic is expressed. Cyberpunk involves cyber people who are outside the norm, punks going up against the establishment. Diesel punk is diesel people, or in a diesel backdrop, a group of punks standing up against the diesel norm. So you can have loads of different kinds of punks. Diesel punk, Renaissance punk, steampunk. Steampunk and cyberpunk are the two more common flavors. But there's a bajillion because you can punk damn near just about anything. I mean, I suppose you could even baby punk. Like if you have a list of transgressive kids books, like D is for death metal, I guess. I don't know, or G is for goth, and you weave some atypical narrative threads for kids books, I guess. But you can punk anything by just having a power dynamic stand up against conformity. Great question. Love it so much. All right. Gentle advice. Question 12. Which is worse, drafting or revising? I think it's good that the camera's off because the face I'm making right now is somewhere between, are you fucking kidding me with this shit? And really? So fuse those two faces together and you'll roughly get where I'm at. I don't know why you're asking. I don't know if there's a single uniform answer. Some people detest drafting. It is a chore for them to get the words out. For whatever reason. They nitpick, they hedge, they drag their feet, whatever. For whatever reason, they have a hard time drafting. Other people have just as equally a hard time revising. They're overly critical, they're moving too slowly, they're indecisive, they're doing too much to please other people, something like that. Like they're doing the best they can, but they've set themselves up in neither case for a great deal of success. I'm not sure why it's important that we have some kind of ranking system here, because for some people, drafting is going to suck. For other people, revising is going to suck. For me, it depends on what we're talking about. Drafting things like audio or sample questions for this or rehearsing my answers, I love it. But revising things, sometimes like trimming audio or, tacking on things in videos, it's a pain in the neck. But revising text, sometimes it's great when the text is a joy and a breeze to go through. I think you're going to encounter situations where it's different every time. Sometimes drafting is going to suck. Sometimes revising is going to suck. Sometimes they're both going to suck. Rather than look at it in terms of like, well, this isn't as bad as that. One is not as bad as the other. Look instead at what about whatever it is making it bad. Am I trying to be a perfectionist? Am I trying too hard to make something complicated when it could be simple? Am I overthinking? Am I not making enough decisions? Am I guessing when I could be moving more confidently? Am I dragging my feet because I don't want to make the wrong decision and I'm afraid to make the wrong decision? Am I rushing because I'm impatient? Find your questions. Find out why you're having trouble doing the thing. Even if you're not sure, even if you can get into the ballpark of, hey, I'm having trouble doing drafting, revising, whatever. Even if you can just put your finger on what it is you don't like about it, you can go find a resource, a person to talk to get help in that. If you're having trouble with the act of being a writer, go talk to a writing coach. If you're having trouble with the specifics of revising, go talk to an editor. If you're having trouble managing the marketing, go talk to a book coach or a book marketer. Like there's always somebody somewhere you can talk to and ask questions and get advice from and work with to help you get over some, not all, but some of the obstacles you're dealing with. Now, some of these obstacles, the majority of these obstacles, in fact, are still going to come down to you confronting yourself. You're going to need to do that. So how do we do that? You sit down and you give it a try, even though you got a good, strong case of the I don't wannas. You push yourself. You tell yourself that you've got these tools, you've got people supporting you. It's scary, but you can do scary things, and then you just give it a try. But rather than rank, well, which one's worse, as if there's going to be a universal answer for everybody, and I could just say things flat, like, oh, this is worse than that, and it's like that forever. How about we try to think about this in more productive terms? How do we make this work for us? How do we put this all together for us? let's put our focus there instead. I think we'd all be better and happier for it. But thanks for your question. Any other questions from anybody in chat? Else, we shall get out of here. No? Yes? Shall we make for the outro? I keep forgetting there's a delay. I think it's 9 seconds between me saying a thing and you responding. All right. I think we should go to the... Yeah, let's go to the outro. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. This was fantastic. Thanks for letting me rant. Thanks for letting me manage my blood pressure. Thanks for letting me talk about money and time and effort and revising and solutions and everything else in between. I really, really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed it as well. Thanks so much for being here this week. Thanks for all the support. Thanks for the subscriptions. Thanks for the thises, that's. If you want more content like this, other than checking out the YouTube channel, the best thing you can do is jump on patreon.com/John Helps You Write Better. You can also go over to johnhelpsyouwritebetter.com and book appointments, ask questions, do everything else. If, by the way, you jump on the Patreon, you get access to the Discord, where you can ask all the questions you have all damn day long. Thanks so much for being here. The next time I'll be right here in your ears, oh man, other than, every day over on the podcast. The next time I'll be right here streaming to you in your ears will be October the 12th. So next Wednesday for the Writers Chat at 7 p.m. Eastern. Thanks so much for being here. All power to all people. Take care of yourself. Take care of the people around you. I love you all. I'll talk to you very, very soon. See ya.